You know what's really important for me? Finding the right controller to play my various types of video games. And I'm someone who is very particular about the controller I have when I'm playing my games. And if you're someone with a similar dilemma as me when you struggle to find the right controller for you, then I may just have the solution for you. This is the Spark N5 wireless controller by QRD Games. It's playable on your PS4, PS3, your PC, and iOS and Android mobile devices. It also comes with a PS5 converter that you could plug into your PS5 and be able to use the controller to play your PS5 games. I would like to give a shout out to QRD Games for sponsoring this video and giving me the opportunity to test out one of their controllers. Thank you very much. So, I'm going to give you guys the rundown of this controller, tell you what it does really well, what it could use some improvement on, and by the end of this video, you can decide if the Spark N5 is the right controller for you. So let's get to it. One thing I want to immediately compliment about the controller is that it is very comfortable to hold. It helps that I have very tiny hands, but just in general, I love the feel of the controller when I hold it. It's very lightweight. So, the D-pad here is a little similar to how the Pro controller has their D-pad. It's very close together, and I actually prefer the D-pad like this, unlike how the PS5 controller has them separated. I am someone who controls characters in fighting games with the D-pad, and it's much easier to slide my fingers around the D-pad for my movement and for down forward and down back motions. It also feels easier to press down on, and I've not gotten any blisters from my long hours of playing with this controller, so that's good. Bumpers and the triggers share a lot of similarities with the Xbox controllers, which I prefer due to the feedback when pressing the buttons. You get that click when you press on the bumpers, and then you have the spring-like press when you press down on the triggers, which for me feels more comfortable for racing games or alternating button presses with the triggers. The face buttons here are good. They share similarities with the Xbox face buttons with how big they are, but the symbols are more exaggerated versions of the PlayStation symbols. The LED lights are a nice little novelty to have, and you could also change the colors they can be. I'll always be a fan of LED light up stuff because it's like a visual stimuli for me. The joysticks of the Spark N5 uses the Hall effect joysticks. I've heard that these are supposed to make joysticks last longer and also easier on your thumbs for comfortability, and to avoid the blister issue. The joysticks feel very loose when moving them around because the notches are a little more spaced out than usual. It is almost like how the Xbox controller has their joysticks. This does come with its benefits and its drawbacks, which I will address in more detail when I talk about my experience using this controller with various games. It works really well with some genres and could be a small issue with others. The controller also comes with two features, the turbo button where you could apply turbo inputs on one of the face buttons, and two macro buttons in the back called N1 and N2. These are like grip buttons where you can set a macro input on these buttons and the buttons will be able to do the input. I'll give a detailed explanation on how the macro can be so good. If you want to find out how to set up turbo inputs and macros, there is an instruction manual for you to read. Now that we've gotten the basics of what this controller has, how did the controller feel when actually playing games on it? I played various different types of games from platformers, racing games, hack and slash, open world sandbox, and fighting games. An entire week of just strictly using this controller for a couple of hours. I gotta say, for general gaming needs, it does a very good job of being a comfortable and effective controller. I've experienced no blisters and the controls were very responsive. Racing games control really well. The feedback from the triggers felt very good and doing drifts felt natural. Even in something like GTA 5, driving with the triggers and the control stick actually felt really good. I was even doing the silly yoga minigame in GTA 5 with no real issues. The joysticks were very easy to get a handle on and hold. I tried out Lollipop Chainsaw Repop for the first time with this controller and it functioned well. The face buttons were responsive for doing combos, and I was able to move Juliet and the camera with no issues. When I decided to play a platformer, I decided to play a game that required quick responses and freedom of movement. Sonic X Shadow Generations felt like the best fit for this. Modern Sonic was smooth to control and I was able to do quick step and drifts with no issues. Shadow Generations is a game where I'm doing more button presses and I was able to clear one of the toughest stages to S rank, no problem. The Spark M5 is able to play these games comfortably and I experience no sort of finger issues throughout my long hours of play. So far so good. However, there is one hurdle that the controller has to deal with when it comes to fighting games. As you know, fighting games are very heavy on inputs and have very precise inputs when it comes to doing special moves like quarter circles, half circles, DP motions, press on motions, you know. I played a lot of games of Street Fighter 6 and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Now, when it comes to moving my character, I had no problem. I moved the character with the D-pad. The difficulty comes in when you want to use the control stick to do special moves and supers. I am someone who strictly does my special moves with the joystick. This is where the looseness of the joystick can become a small problem. Due to the sensitivity and the looseness of the joystick, you have to be sure you are slow and also turn the joystick more than usual to ensure your quarter circle motions come out, especially if you have to do double quarter circle motions. This was something I struggled with a lot during my playtime with these two games, and I lost a couple games due to the input not registering on the quarter circle input. Sometimes I'm not even able to get the proper move I want on the control stick like I would with the D-pad. Now, I could just use the D-pad to do special moves, but that just doesn't feel comfortable for me to play. It could also be a skill issue, but as good as the Spark N5 is for a lot of other games, it can have some difficulty with fighting games and I would love to see some small improvements on maybe the control stick to make it tighter. They do have a dedicated fight stick to play fighting games on, so the fight stick would definitely be more preferable if you are a player who uses a stick. I just would like to see some small tweaks to help improve pad players like myself. Also, I guess if you're just someone who strictly plays with the D-pad, then this probably isn't an issue for you at all. So, remember when I brought up the macro functionality? Well, this could best be applied for fighting games. You can set an input to the N1 or N2 button to do special inputs. To give some examples, I set the N1 button to do a macro of Kimberly's light elbow special move. I can just do it with one button press. I can do Kanji's grab super now with just one button press, and even apply it to combos like I normally would, but now with just less input on my part. I can even do one button electrics with Reina. This is pretty crazy. It certainly makes things easier for inputs and I actually think this is a really cool feature. Would this be terminate legal? Probably not. However, if you're just doing single player stuff, it definitely helps. It could definitely have its uses outside of fighting games as well. You'll just have to figure out what those uses could be. So, overall, I gotta say, the Spark N5 is pretty impressive. Again, it's very comfortable in my hands. The D-pad and the joystick are very comfortable in my fingers. I haven't experienced any blisters. The face buttons are very responsive. I actually love the turbo and the macro button function. The battery life is actually pretty long lasting. It's really good. I just hope that there could be some improvements to the joystick for being less loose so that it can actually respond well to fighting games. But overall, for other general gaming playstyles, it's actually really good. I can definitely see myself using this controller a lot for my gaming sessions. And if you're interested in buying this controller after watching this video, there will be a link in the description below to show you where you can buy this controller. And again, I want to give a special shout out to QRD Games for giving me the opportunity to try out their controller. I really appreciate it. I would like to thank you all for watching this video and for supporting the content. It really means a lot to me. And I hope to see you again next time. Have a great day.